Welcome to Absolute Trust Talk with your host, Kirsten Howe. Absolute Trust Talk brings you tips, tools, advice, and interviews to help you build a reliable knowledge base on estate planning, business, and finance to start preparing for your future today.
Hello and welcome to Absolute Trust Talk. I'm Kirsten Howe, the managing attorney at Absolute Trust Counsel. And today we are wrapping up our conversation with my guest, Janet Brewer, on international estate planning. And just as a reminder, if you didn't catch our previous episodes, the first two episodes that I had with Janet, go back and listen to them. But just to let you know, so Janet is a colleague of mine. We've known each other a long time. Janet is located in Los Altos. Her law firm is Law Office of Janet L. Brewer. She has been practicing law in the Bay Area for over 30 years. She specializes in particular on working with clients who have international issues in their estate planning. Because she's located in Silicon Valley, she tends to have a lot of those kinds of clients, people who are here on visas to work for a job, or they've been here long enough that they've now become either green card holders or citizens. But that geographical area tends to attract a lot of foreigners who want to come and work for us in the US. Janet has developed this pretty wide expertise in working with those clients, and I wanted to have her on for quite a while to talk to us about that. And so we've covered a few things in the other episodes, but one thing that I really wanted to talk to you about, Janet, and welcome, by the way.
Thank you. Thanks.
I'm just going on and on and on. Probably the most common scenario that we have in our practice here on the other side of the Bay, which is we have clients who are here and they're US citizens, but they own property in another country, maybe because their parents still live in this other country and they have inherited, or the parents have died in this other country and they've inherited property for whatever reason. They may own real estate, in India, in China, or anywhere. So what are we doing for those people? What's the advice that we are giving them?
Well, there's some advice, I guess, that is just general. I've encountered people, and quite frankly, I have to admit, early in my career, I did it myself, who have put into their wills that I give my property located in, I'm going to use France as an example. I give my property in France to the trustee of my trust to be distributed according to the trust. France doesn't recognize trusts.
Right. So that's a problem from the get-go.
That's a problem from the get-go. As a general rule, the only countries that actually recognize trusts tend to be the former British colonies. Germany doesn't have a trust concept. China doesn't have a trust concept. Lots of countries don't have trust concepts. Going back to, international law, if you will, you've probably heard of the Hague Conventions.
Sure.
The Hague treaties. There's a couple of hundred treaties that exist. One of those treaties is the Hague Convention on International Wills. Oh. So there actually is a treaty, the US has signed it, and a number of other countries have signed it, that said, look, if you've got a will that follows this format, even if it doesn't comply with the requirements that our country has for wills, we will honor that will in our country. And actually, Kirsten, it's embedded in the California Probate Code. There's a section of the California Probate Code that outlines the exact language that the international will needs to contain, and it follows the wording that's in the Hague Treaty or the Hague Convention on International Wills. So what I do many times is I will create an international will for people with the idea that it is probably going to be admitted to probate in that other country.
Right.
Now, again, we still can't do things like say that even if it's England, we can't say that the cottage that we've got in the Cotswolds is going to be put into the trust and distributed under the trust. It needs to be, the cottage in the Cotswolds goes to my sister who lives wherever it is that they live. But we can at least get the will admitted to probate in the foreign country, and avoid, again, this is legalese, but avoid intestate succession. I might want everything to go to my one sister, and I've got three brothers and sisters. If I didn't have a will, then the asset in that country would go to all three of them. So with that will, I can just say, I want it to go to this sister. You still get into a little bit of an issue with who has the original will and what, there's only one original will. The person probably doesn't only have assets in England. I'm sure you've encountered this where.
Yeah, they probably have most of their assets here.
Right.
But they've got that little pocket of assets somewhere else. Yeah.
Right. So, what do you do then? There's one will in two countries. So under California law, as you know, we lodge the will, even if everything's in the trust, we lodge the will with the probate court where it's supposed to be lodged. We then have to go through a procedure to quote unquote localize the will or legalize the will in the other country, because just like California says, we want the original will, the High Court of Wales and England, I think it's called, wants the original there as well. And once you've lodged it in the United States, you can't take it out of court and magically make it appear overseas. Right. So there's a process that we go through to basically prove that the will is a valid will and have the copy admitted in the overseas jurisdiction.
Okay, so in that scenario where, let's say there's a cottage and it's in England and you want your sister to have it, but you have a trust in the US, and we ordinarily would want our clients to have a pour over will saying, I leave everything on my death to my trust. Now I'm really getting nerdy and it's just us girls talking, but would you write the will, to the international will, to say, I'm leaving this cottage to my sister and I'm leaving everything else to my US trust?
Basically, that's what I do. I guess the short answer is yes. I usually do it a little bit differently. I put in, I'm leaving everything to the trustee of my trust, but if for some reason my trust is not acceptable in the country where it's being probated, then I leave the property, to these individual beneficiaries.
Yeah.
But it's really just a question, you word it this way, potato, I word it that way, potato. It accomplishes the same thing regardless of which is first. So the other thing I was going to say is sometimes I actually, to overcome the problem of how do I get the wills admitted in both countries, this is not part of the International Convention, but another thing that you'll hear talked about in international circles is something called a situs will, situs, from the Latin word for location. So I'll do a will, for example, that says this will is designed to cover only my assets in the United States. I revoke all previous wills and codicils that relate to my assets in the United States, but I affirm any wills that I have made that cover my assets in other countries.
Right.
And then I will, depending on the client, I'll work with an attorney in that other country to make sure that they do sort of a mirror image will that says this will is only designed to cover my assets in England. I revoke all previous wills and codicils with respect to my assets in England, but I affirm the terms of the will of another country if I've created one. And so then when the time comes, the person takes the US will and files it with the local court and it gets probated here. And then there's another will that hopefully someone takes to the high court of whatever country we're dealing with and has that will probated in accordance with that country's laws.
Right. Which I think you impliedly brought up an important point indirectly. And this is what I tell my clients who have this situation. We're doing an estate plan here in the US because they live here, they have assets, but they also have these assets overseas. You need to talk to an attorney in that jurisdiction because there might be all kinds of things that we don't know about their laws that are unique to their laws. One example being, there are countries that have forced heirship, and you can't assume that whatever you say is actually going to work. you really do need to talk to an attorney and work with an attorney in that jurisdiction.
Correct.
Yeah. And Janet has resources. Help you
I
find
do.
an attorney.
Yeah, there's an organization called STEP, Society of Trust and Estate Practitioners. It was founded in England, and so if you look on their directory, I would say probably 40% of the members worldwide live in England, but it has branches in most other countries. There may only be one or two members in those countries, but it does have branches in various countries. You can actually go on the web to step.org, that's step.org, and look for the member directory, put in the name of the country that you're looking for an attorney in, and if there's a member, their name will pop up, or a number of names will pop up. You know, in England, there's so many that I think, like, some of what I would consider the areas of London, the East End of London, has enough attorneys just in the East End that they've got their own chapter. And, the West End has another chapter. So it is a very, very good resource if you need to find an attorney. Or, again, they've got financial advisors, they've got accountants. I have a lot of clients who need a foreign accountant because they're either living outside of the United States, or again, they've got investment property outside of the United States, and obviously also attorneys, all of whom meet the membership requirements for STEP.
So it's like an estate planning council, but
it's exactly, it's exactly, well, it is and it's not. And again, I'm telling tales out of school. Let's say that the requirements for membership in the United States are much more relaxed than they are in the UK. We're getting tougher. The STEP has now been around for, I think it's about 13 or 14 years it's been in the US. So they are starting to basically make you, it's kind of like renewing your specialist license, where you have to get referrals from other people that verify that you're doing a certain amount of estate planning or international estate planning. The US hasn't gone that far yet. UK has. So different countries do really, really make sure that the members are vetted and they are very familiar with some aspect of international practice.
Okay, interesting. But it is a good resource. So thank you for sharing that with our listeners. And Janet, I just want to thank you so much for your time and your expertise here that you've shared with us over these last 3 episodes. Thank you so much. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been a real pleasure.
Good. And thank you for listening and watching. And I hope you learned a lot. I know I did. I look forward to connecting with you next time.
Thank you for joining us today for another episode of Absolute Trust Talk Live. If you enjoyed listening in, then don't forget to subscribe. You can find us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you may listen by searching Absolute Trust Talk. While you're there, we would also love for you to leave us a review. And then why not share your favorite episodes with family, friends, or colleagues too? You can find all of our shows and corresponding show notes by visiting absolutetrustcouncil.com. You'll also find a variety of other free resources, including our ebooks, videos, blogs, presentations, and more. If you need help with your estate planning or administration, we also offer a free discovery call to help get the process started. You can find more information on booking your session by visiting absolutetrustcouncil.com/scheduling. If you join us for the broadcast, you can submit questions during the show. But if not, don't worry. You can always get in touch with us by sending a quick message to info@absolutetrustcouncil.com. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you soon.
This podcast is not meant to take the place of legal advice from an attorney and does not create an attorney-client relationship. If you do have a legal question or issue, please consult with an attorney.